topic.
Hey everybody, so if you watched my last video, you know that I recently went on a trip with my friends to the UK over our winter break. Well, I'm a college student, and as such, I am broke constantly. So I saved up all of the money I made over the summer being a camp counselor, and half of each of my paychecks are for my job here in order to go on this trip. It was hard, but it was definitely worth it. Out of everything we did while we were there, the biggest expense we had was flying there. I live near Chicago, so there's a major international airport there, but it's not as easy flying to Europe or like anywhere else because we're in the center of the country. If I was on the East Coast in New York or Washington or Boston, it'd be a lot cheaper because you only have to cross the Atlantic, you don't also have to cross the entire country. But we managed to get really good airfare, which significantly lowered the cost of our trip, and it made it much more realistic and affordable for us to get over there. I believe that almost anyone can go on a vacation to Europe, and I also believe anyone can fly there for relatively cheap if they know some tips and tricks of people who happen to travel a lot like I do. These tips aren't just for Europe. You can actually use these tips on any flight you're trying to buy to anywhere you want to go. To start, knowing when to buy is really important. When you're trying to find an international flight, the best time to look is 5 to 6 months ahead of time. And if you're going domestic, it's around 50 to 60 days. Have you ever seen in movies when someone is rushing after the one they love and they go to the airport and they try to buy a last minute ticket and it costs like $3,000? That's because the closer you wait to your departure date, the higher it gets. You might think that they're willing to sell off whatever tickets they have left, but that's not really true. Because the seats that they don't sell usually happen to be business class or first class and all that sort of stuff. So those are the only seats left, and those cost a ton more money than flying economy. So don't wait too long to buy them, otherwise the price will be unrealistic and you'll be like, oh, I can't get to Europe, never gonna be there. Speaking of when to buy your airfare, if you want to find the cheapest airfare, your new best friend is Wednesdays. Airlines always lower their prices and they have the cheapest prices for tickets on Wednesdays. Think about it. It's the weekend, you don't have work, you spend the past 3 hours perusing the travel tag on Pinterest, and all of a sudden you just have this sudden urge to leave the country and go on an amazing trip. The airline companies know this happens, so they jack up the prices on the weekends. So if you're really looking for a cheap flight, you should really look in the middle of the week because prices tend to be significantly lower then. Wednesdays are also your best friends because they are one of the cheapest days to fly. That's why it's important to start booking your flights early, because if you know a general time in which you want to go, then your dates can be more flexible. The more flexible you are about your departure dates, the easier it is to get a better airfare. When we were planning our trip to the UK, we knew that we wanted to be in England on New Year's, so we knew kind of when we had to leave. New Year's was on that Wednesday, so we wanted to leave that Sunday or Monday because it takes a day to get there because you're going back and all those sorts of time changes and everything. But we didn't have a set day on which we wanted to come back. We didn't have a set amount of time that we needed to be back by, which was really lucky for us. So you guessed it, we flew back on a Wednesday. Because we looked at the prices for the entire week of the week we wanted to come back, and the cheapest day was Wednesday. We could have come back earlier, we could have come back later, but the cheapest day was Wednesday, so we took that ticket. If we wanted to stay one day later, it would have been $300 more. I don't know if you've ever been a college student, but $300 is a lot of money. In general, the cheapest days to fly are Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And the most expensive days would be Friday and Sunday, because those are the days that most people have to travel. You get out of work and you go on a vacation, or you're done for the week and you come back on a Sunday so that you don't have to miss work on a Monday. But if you're going on a trip, they're still the most expensive time to fly. If you don't have flexible dates, that's completely understandable. Sometimes people only get a certain amount of time off of work in order to go on trips with their families or with their friends or by themselves. So sometimes there's not a lot of that wiggle room, but if you have that wiggle room, it's very important to use it because you will save a ton of money. My other favorite way to save is by looking at cities that are surrounding your destination. For the UK, the main hub of the UK happens to be London, but it also happens to be the most expensive city to fly into. But if you look at the surrounding cities near the UK, you can actually find cheaper airfare. For example, when we went to England over winter break, we start off in Manchester, which is where one of our friends live. But Manchester's not very close to London, so we looked at the surrounding cities. We could fly into Manchester, there's an airport there. We could fly into Liverpool, but we ended up deciding to fly into Dublin. Dublin was actually a lot closer to Manchester than London was. Not only being a major city, it happens to be a fantastic city in the UK, but it's also the hub for an airline company called Aer Lingus. Whenever you're flying into a city that's a hub for an airline company, those flights tend to be cheaper. What would have cost us $1,200 for round-trip airfare to London only costs us $700 for round-trip airfare to Dublin. That's almost half the price. I know what you might be saying, Sam, Dublin's not in England. How did you get from Dublin to England? I have two words for you, and it's Ryanair. If you've ever spent any time in Europe, then you definitely know what Ryanair is. Ryanair is a cheap, no-frills airline for travel within Europe. We got a $20 flight from Dublin to Manchester and a $40 flight from London to Dublin. So we could still travel in and out of Dublin, but we were able to go to and from the UK. I once took a 2-hour flight from Rome to Barcelona for $15. That's a ridiculous price. But I only needed to be on the plane for 2 hours. I didn't need to be in a comfy seat with in-flight entertainment. I just wanted to get from point A to point B without spending a lot of money, and Ryanair lets you do that. A little bit of shuffling around the airport and a 6-hour layover in Dublin, and we had saved upwards of $400 on airfare already. And that money we were able to spend elsewhere on our trip. This next tip might be a stretch for some people, but when I travel, I like to do so with minimum luggage. I like to only bring on my carry-on luggage. Now, I'm not saying you can shove everything in the backpack that you go to school with, but I have a backpack it's pretty big, but it fits in the carry-on compartment so that I don't have to check any bags. Not everyone gives you a free bag. So if you're just carrying on your bag, you don't have to worry about paying any extra fee. Also, it's very convenient because you know where all of your stuff is all the time, and when you touch down in your country or the destination you're going to, you can just get off the airplane, get out of the airport, and start your adventure, and you're not stuck waiting around at the baggage claim. But my number one most important tip to flying cheap is where you buy your ticket from. There are millions of sites that can show you the cheapest airfare options from hundreds of other sites, but my favorite happens to be edreams.net. It's a very simple site. You pop in where you want to go, when you want to go, and how many people you want to go with. I always start with just one person so that I can get the base airfare without having to do any sort of math. And sometimes if you add more, they put some extra charges on it, so I always just search for one first. But when you use edreams.net, you put all of that stuff in, and then it shows you the price. It doesn't have a million different pop-up ads. It doesn't ask you for hotels. Well, sometimes it does, but it opens in a new tab. You can always just X out of it. But it's just the price. It gives you the airline, when it leaves, when it comes back, and the price. It's very simple. It's very easy to use, and that's why it's my favorite. Now, using eDreams isn't actually the tip. The tip is looking at the price on one of these sites that pulls from 100 different sites and comparing your favorite price to the one from the airline site for that same exact flight. Typically, I'll find a price I like on one of those comparative sites, and then I'll go to that airline site and I'll compare the prices. Sometimes the third-party prices are a little cheaper, sometimes the airline's prices are a little cheaper, depends if there's any of those hidden fees within the third-party site, but typically they tend to be the same. It's just easier to have all of the flights listed out for you so you can pick that one rather than going to Aer Lingus' flights, going to Southwest flights, going to Lufthansa, all that sort of stuff. They're right there in front of you, and then you can go to the website. I recommend buying your ticket from the actual airline site itself just to feel safer, because that way I'm working with the airline directly and not through the third-party site. I always feel like if I'm using some sort of cheapo air site, that something might get lost in translation or something might go wrong with the sites, and then your tickets won't be right, and it's just too much pressure, and I'd much rather just be able to go through the airline, and then if I have any problems or anything, I can contact that airline and not have to contact whatever third-party site I used. So those are my tips for this week's Travel Tip Thursday. If you have any questions about any other travel tips or any videos that you want me to make regarding any travel tips or just anything in general, feel free to email me. I put my email in the description. I hope you find these tips helpful, and I'll see you guys next time.